feel free to send me any questions. My name is Alyssa Wharton, and my pronouns are they, them. I am the Digital Makerspace Coordinator at Randall Library. What is the Digital Makerspace, you may ask? Well, the Digital Makerspace is a wonderful place that has 3D printers and offers VR to the UNCW community, but we do much more than that. We also are a place to help encourage and learn things about software. So this is called digital literacy. And if you need help with your digital media production, or you're making a video and you don't know how to edit it, we can help you with that. Now, we're not going to do it for you, but we will show you the steps of the way to really learn how to use these things. So, you know, whether you're making a podcast about your favorite Netflix show, or you have a final project where you have to 3D model something, we can help you every step of the way. So please feel free to reach out to us. We also have video guides online at the library's guides website under Makerspace. So without further ado, we're going to talk about Tinkercad today. So Tinkercad is a wonderful online free modeling software. What's great about Tinkercad is that it's very user-friendly and people of all ages can use it. I really like Tinkercad because it's great for when I need to whip up a 3D model very quickly. And it's pretty intuitive. So if I feel like I haven't, used it in a while, I can still come right back and pick it back up. We're going to be going over the bare basics today. So we're not going to get into a lot of the more advanced features of Tinkercad, but Tinkercad is loaded with features. Also, you do not have to follow along with this video. You can work at your own pace or just watch this for now. Just kind of sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. So we're going to go ahead and open up Tinkercad. Now, I already have an account, so what I'm going to do is switch my screen over, and we're going to go ahead and look at the Tinkercad main dashboard. Let me find that right there. Okay, so here's the Tinkercad main dashboard. This is what your Tinkercad account will look like when you start making models. Now, I have all sorts of models for all sorts of projects for different things around the digital makerspace, or that I'm working with personal patrons of the makerspace for their projects, helping them along. So there's a variety of things in here. Now, as you can see, we do have these tabs at the very top, which include a Learn tab in the upper right-hand corner. So if you ever feel like you need to go into a little more detail, or you think that this video isn't really helping enough, this would be the best bet for you to kind of check out and explore. They have kind of step-by-step tutorials that can walk you through things inside the software, as well as I think some articles for just listing the process. So it's worth it to give it a shot. Right now, what we're going to do first is just go to create a new design. Now, if you've made a new Tinkercad account, you're not going to have any of these files here. It's probably going to look like a blank slate. So you'll just be able to create your first design. So this is our Tinkercad workplace. Now, our Tinkercad workplane is really interesting, and there's a couple of things about navigating around this workplane. Before we really get into modeling, let's talk about that. So what we're going to do is, by right-clicking and dragging, we're able to move around and view our workplane at different angles. Now, viewing your workplane at different angles is really important for 3D modeling because you're trying to model it spatially. So whenever you're modeling, and you'll see me do this today, you're going to be constantly changing our angle as we move things around. Now, keep in mind, this workplane is pretty handy, but also when I'm using things to zoom in and out, I'm using the scroll wheel to zoom in and out. There are other tools for this, and I'll show you them in just a minute, but keep in mind, Tinkercad does work best with a mouse that has a left and right clicking button, as well as a scroll wheel. So here we have our Tinkercad workshop. Now, there is this handy dandy little cube up here that can help you navigate, just in case you find that your mouse is acting a little wonky, or it's just not working out for you to navigate using your mouse for whatever reason. Now, over here on the left-hand side, you have a couple of buttons. So clicking on the house thing will bring us to the home position of our work plane. We can also zoom in and out using the plus and minus sign over here. There is a fit all in view, which is great when modeling comes into place, and we might use that a little today, as well as an orthographic view. What that means is that we're going to take a look at things being in the center as if it's flat or straight on. This can help with our perspective a little bit. All right. If we don't have any questions, or if you feel like you need to review these tools, I'd go ahead and pause this video to check it out, or we're just going to dive right in. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to rename our file. Now, Tinkercad always gives us these crazy names that we can, work with. But if we want to change that to something that we're, actually making, we're going to go ahead and just click on that name and type in what we're making. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to make keychains with our names on them, so that way when we lose our keys, which I always do, people can return them to us. That's right. We're going to kind of keep in mind that when we're designing things, we're thinking about 3D printing them, because of course you want to use the digital makerspace to 3D print things. Am I right? So please do feel free to do that. Again, our shameless plug, our 3D printing service is online at digitalmakerspace.uncw.edu. It is 12 cents a gram plus tax, and you can submit any STL file, which we'll get into that in just a moment, and we'll be able to print it for you. Now, there are some limitations with 3D printing, and again, we're going to touch on that as we go along. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to bring in a box over to our work plane. Now, that's just by clicking and dragging, so we can click and drag any shape we want. Now, these basic shapes are on the right-hand side, so if this bar is not showing up, you can expand or reduce it by clicking this arrow here in the middle of our right-hand side. You can scroll down and see a lot of other different types of shapes that are available. Tinkercad does have a multitude of other shapes and things that you can include, but right now we're just focusing on the basics. Now, we do have our grid at millimeters, and we also have the snap grid. That's going to be pretty useful for us today. A snap grid is pretty much going to make it automatically clip to certain parts and areas, so that way we can get a more accurate feel for what we're doing. If we wanted to change the measurement, we can change it to inches, but I actually am really accustomed to using millimeters, so that's what we're going to use. Now, a lot of 3D printing slicing software, which is the stuff that prepares your models for prints, does work in millimeters as well. So when you're working with a lot of 3D printing, you want that kind of accuracy, and that's why a lot of these programs use millimeters over inches. If you're just 3D modeling to have fun, go ahead and use inches if that's what makes you more comfortable. So clicking on the shape makes it active, and what this does is this creates a blue highlight around our active shape. Now, we do have all these sorts of things that have popped up that look kind of overwhelming, but don't worry, we're going to handle that. So let's zoom in on our cube. This is a very lovely cube. It's bright red, but let's say we don't really like that color. Well, we can actually change that, and that'll be our first step today. What we're going to do is, now that we have our shape active, we can change our color by clicking on this solid right here. We can change our color to anything. So right now I'm feeling like green is a pretty good color for today. All right. After that, we have these different handles. Now, we don't want a cube for our keychain, so we're actually going to think about this. A good size for our keychain, we want it to kind of fit in our pockets, not be too bulky. So maybe about 2 inches long and, maybe, I don't know, 1 inch wide, or maybe a little less. Again, we're just kind of going to wing it. Now, inches to millimeters, we're looking at about 25 or 26 millimeters to 1 inch. So again, I'm not an expert, and I'm definitely not a calculator, but this will be what we work with today. Now, to resize this, we can do a couple of things with these handles. We can move the black handles to expand and contract by clicking and dragging a single side. We can use the corner handles, which are the white boxes, to resize in any way or direction along an axis. And what I mean by an axis is we have the X and Y, which are our horizontal plane here. I believe that this is X and this is Y. And our Z is actually going to be going vertical. So this little arrow up here is going to be our little friend when we're working with our Z axis. And as you can see, it can move things up and down. Now I'm just going to undo that really quickly. So to undo your last step in Tinkercad, you're just going to do Control Z. It works just like it would in Microsoft Paint or Microsoft Office. Let's go ahead and make this about 2 inches. So that's going to be around probably a little more than 50 millimeters, but again, I'm just winging it. Now, we do have this at 17, and that'll work just fine for us for now, keeping it small, sweet. But you can see that this is still a giant block. So what we're going to do is, again, we're rotating, making sure that we can see, and we're just going to make this a couple millimeters thick. Making it about 2 or 3 millimeters thick will actually make it a slight small panel that is just solid enough for us to have a nice compact keychain. So I really like working in that size for keychains. I think it's kind of efficient, it's not too heavy, and it's fairly quick to print. All right, feeling good about that. Let's go ahead and bring in a second object. Now, I'm going to go ahead and bring in text. So I'm going down here and grabbing text and placing it. I can place this anywhere in the work plane because what we're going to do is we're going to eventually put that on our shape. But first, let's go ahead and edit that. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to my name. Again, I'm clicking on this, making it active, and that gives me the option to edit the text up here in the shape box. That's in the right side of the screen. You can change the font. You don't have too many extravagant options. So it's really kind of up to you, and you can work with what you got. Let's go ahead and resize that. Now, if I hold down the Shift key, I'm able to resize this proportionately. If I were to just resize it without holding the Shift key, you're going to see it stretches. So holding down the Shift key allows me to kind of keep things a little more uniform. I'm also going to change that color, and I'm feeling that this light blue seems like it'd be really good. Now, when I'm changing the color, it's really just for aesthetic purposes. If we were to 3D print this, chances are it's going to be all in one color. So it's going to be whatever you 3D print the filament in. So if you select, blue, it's not going to show up when you send it to the slicer. So you want to make sure that you let us know what filament color you would like. Again, this is just single color printing. So the preview that we have on our screen today is going to be entirely different from your finished product as far as color goes. Now, while I have my name on here, you can see that it's still going all the way down to my work plane. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move it up. Now, our block is about 3 millimeters high, so I'm just moving my name to set on top of that. In addition, my name doesn't need to be that thick, so again, I'm just scaling this back down again to 2 millimeters to keep it small, compact, and looking pretty solid. That way my name's not going to break off or snap off, and it's resting and still solid with the base that we have. Let's say I really like this, so I want to keep them both, and I'm not going to change my name on this at all. What I can do is I can select both shapes at once. To do that, what I can do is click and drag from an empty spot over the shapes that I want to select, and that selects them both. As you can see, the blue highlight is around my name as well as the block. We can combine those shapes by grouping them together using the group tool, which is in the upper right-hand corner. Group. That will make it all one color because it is showing it as a unified shape. But hey, it works. Now, this is going to be a keychain, so we need to add a keychain hole. Now, I can always ungroup if I want to to keep things separate. And we'll just do that real quick as we bring in our keychain hole. We're going to take this cylinder and drag it over to the edge of my name. Now, it's just kind of going to go here. We're not going to line it up just yet because we need to resize it. I'm thinking that it doesn't really need to be this big. So we'll go ahead and make it, I'm thinking 15 will be just fine. From here, I'm going to go ahead and change the height so that it's matching the base. And it's a little off center. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select both the base and that cylinder by clicking and dragging over those two shapes. So you notice I'm not selecting my name. Now to get those to line up, what I'm going to do next is use the Align tool. The Align tool is actually up close to the Group and Ungroup tools in the upper right-hand corner. So from here, I have selected the Align tool and it doesn't automatically align it. We have to do that ourselves. We can do that just by clicking one of these dots. It allows us to change everything. Now, I really just wanted that aligned in the center, so that's where I'm going to keep it. Now that I like that, we need the hole for the keyring. Now, it's a good idea to have like 2 millimeter depth on all sides. So that means that this hole is probably going to be 11 millimeters in diameter to fit perfectly in our cylinder. And again, I'm just dragging this over. Now, to make sure that it's centered, we can go ahead and swap over to orthographic view. One thing that I'm going to do first is hit fit to view the selected shapes. This brings our shape front and center. Additionally, we can do orthographic view and top, and we see that it's flush and nice and center. Very nice. I like it. I'm going to go ahead and switch my view back. And again, that's on the left-hand side. And I'm changing my view. Now, just to make sure that our hole is going all the way through, I'm going to take this black triangle up here and again, just scoot it a little lower so that it's going all the way through, just to make sure that that whole thing is a hole through that. We're not going to get any super tiny layers that are super thin just because it's resting on the work plane. So it's a good idea to be extra sure. Now that we like that, I want to combine all three of these shapes, but not my name, just because. So we'll go ahead and select those three shapes and group them together. This creates our nice little keychain keyring hole. Nice. I'm going to go ahead and straighten my name on this using the Align tool. Oh, wrong tool. All right, so it's already pretty center. So there we go. We've made a keychain. Now this isn't the end. What we can do to make sure that we're able to 3D print this is export it. So to export your file as an STL or OBJ, both are good for uploading and 3D printing and are fairly common file formats. You're just going to go ahead up to this upper right hand corner and click export. Now you do have a couple of different options here. The first top tab allows us to download to our local computer or our local drives. However, if we wanted to order this 3D print from somebody else or a third party and not the digital makerspace, which I would be offended if you did, you can go here to 3D print and pick all of these different printers and vendors to possibly 3D print your piece. But don't worry, you're just going to send it to the good old DMS and we'll handle it. So what you'll do is make sure everything in the design is selected and just hit that STL. Then we have our file. It's saved, it's great, it's wonderful. We're feeling pretty good about it. That's really our bare basics of Tinkercad. And we can go into a little more features if you want. I'm going to allow my co-host to advise me otherwise if I should continue for a few more minutes or not.
I say go for it.
All right, cool. So let's go ahead and make another file just for fun. I'm going to go back to my Tinkercad dashboard by clicking on the Tinkercad logo in the upper left-hand corner and create another design. This allows me to create another design with another funky name. So I'm going to go ahead and change that to nameplate. Let's go ahead and talk about rotating. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to start rotating and getting crazy with some angles today. What I'm going to do is bring this roof shape over. Now, I don't really like this angle, so what I'm going to do is rotate this 90 degrees. I can click and drag this, and it'll snap to. Or if I wanted to, I could type in the degrees just by clicking on the box, and that allows me to rotate it. Let's say I want to have this probably be about an inch high. So that would be about 25 or 26 millimeters and a couple of inches long. So maybe 4 or 5 inches would be pretty nice. That's pretty good. Now, as you can see, there's a sharp angle here, and we do want to put our name on this. So we'll go ahead and bring in some text and change it. So maybe I want to change this to Superman. This is in no way endorsed by DC or Superman. So here we have Superman. We want to make sure he has a very nice nameplate, and you know what? We might actually change this to his mild-mannered alter ego, so that way he can, have this at work. We're going to go ahead and scoot this over, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to line these up real quick just to make sure it's center before I move this. Now, as I move this, I'm moving this up and over, and I'm going to start rotating it. When I'm rotating it, I'm going to try to get onto the side of our roof here to make sure it's as close to the angle as possible. So again, this is really just eyeballing it. And what can help with eyeballing is using the orthographic view. This can help us make sure that they're parallel at an angle so that it matches. And then from there, we can just click and drag that. And of course, use the align tool to make sure that these things are centered. Now, sometimes with these, you do have to kind of play around and tweak with the angles. But here we can see we have our nameplate for Clark Kent that we can 3D print for his desk. So we can scoot that over a little bit, or we can make that a little smaller since it looks like it's jutting out of the back side. So maybe not. You can always tweak it every which way. And again, I'm just changing the view constantly, as well as making sure things are aligned and realigned and double checking everything. So again, it's very good practice with 3D modeling to constantly change your view, be constantly checking between orthographic or regular views, and check what you're doing. You always want to switch your views, make sure at different angles things are working out, and that way you'll have a more accurate and a stronger model. Now, there are a lot of different things for models that you need to consider if you're going to 3D print. Some of those things include supports. Now, 3D printers cannot just print in midair, so these letters may need some support material, and those will be kind of like scaffolding that help build up so that the actual letters have something to stand on. And that's something to consider when you are 3D printing. Now, there are other ways to 3D print this, like we could end up rotating this entire thing, so I'm going to group this together, and printing it from its side. And again, we can do that just on our own. after you send us your print, and that might be a little easier for us to print. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do things, and a lot of different ways to come out with different results as far as 3D printing and your object. You can do multicolor printing. It just depends on the capacity of the printer and if they are able to do it. You're not going to be able to do that at the DMS currently, but that does require dual extrusion or a mosaic feature. Or if you're using special types of 3D printers with powders, you can sometimes get a lot of different colors. So there's a lot to consider for that. All right, that is Tinkercad. You can import STLs if you wanted to. So you can import existing files that you've made to bring them in. And I recommend doing that if you just want to play around and learn things and modify existing STLs that you might find on places like Thingiverse. That's a very good way to kind of explore and get into more in-depth modeling. All right, well, it is about 30 minutes in, so I want to thank you all for watching. And
that's super cool. Thanks, Alyssa.
Yes, thank you. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.